In the stillness of this morning, you awaken not to rush, but to rest in the gentle presence of God. The world outside moves with its usual noise, responsibilities, messages, and endless tasks. Yet within this moment, heaven calls you to quiet your heart. This silence is not emptiness, it is sacred space. It is here, in this gentle pause, that God whispers truth your soul has longed to hear. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Your heart was not made to live in constant motion. Every time you stop and breathe, you give room for divine restoration. Perhaps you have walked through seasons filled with noise, opinions, expectations, and fears. But this quiet isn't punishment, it's preparation. God often does his deepest work in the unseen places, where words fade and surrender begins. You might feel like nothing is happening right now, like the silence means delay. But remember, the soil doesn't complain when the seed rests underground. In that dark, hidden place, growth is already underway. The Lord is shaping something inside you: patience, resilience, trust. The quiet becomes the canvas for his masterpiece. In Isaiah 30:15, the Lord declares, "In quietness and trust is your strength." You don't need to chase control today. The peace you crave is found in releasing what you cannot handle and trusting that God's plan still holds, even when you can't see it unfold. Every pause, every slow breath is an act of worship that says, "God, I trust your timing more than my own." As you sit in this moment, feel his peace surrounding you like a soft morning light breaking through the shadows. You are safe in his hands. You don't have to prove anything, fix everything, or understand all that he's doing. You simply need to rest in the truth that he is working, right now, right here, even in the quiet. May this silence become your sanctuary, not your fear. May your heart find new rhythm in his grace, where striving ends and faith begins. Where are you watching or listening from? And what time of day is it there? Let's fill the comments with the light of our prayers across the world. When life slows down and you step into silence, something sacred happens. The noise that once distracted you fades, and your heart becomes more aware of what God has been gently trying to heal. The world tells you to stay busy, to fix, to move, to achieve. But God invites you to be still, because healing does not happen in chaos. It happens in peace. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. In this quiet, his presence wraps around every hidden ache, soothing places you didn't even know were still hurting. There are moments when silence feels uncomfortable, as if you've lost direction or connection. But the truth is, in this quiet, you are closer to him than you realize. The absence of noise is not abandonment, it's intimacy. When you stop striving, you finally give God the space to speak what can't be heard through constant motion. You may not always hear his words clearly, but his presence has a language that your soul understands. This stillness is the workshop of heaven. It's where your tears become prayers and your waiting becomes worship. Sometimes you think nothing is changing, but transformation is already happening beneath the surface. The same way the roots of a tree strengthen in silence beneath the earth, your faith is being deepened in the unseen. God's hands are gently shaping your heart, one quiet moment at a time. Remember Lamentations 3:25. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. Even when everything around you feels uncertain, your quiet trust becomes a testimony. You're learning to lean not on what you can see, but on who you know is faithful. The quiet doesn't mean God is far. It means he is near enough that words are no longer needed. You may be in a season where doors aren't opening, answers aren't coming, and prayers seem to echo back. But that's often when God is doing his most delicate work. He's aligning hearts, rearranging paths, and preparing blessings that will arrive exactly when your soul is ready to receive them. The quiet isn't wasted time. It's divine timing. So let this silence be your teacher. Let it show you that strength isn't proven through noise, but through surrender. You are not forgotten. You are being refined. The peace you feel when you stop fighting is the sound of heaven reminding you that you are safe, seen, and deeply loved. God is still writing your story, and right now, the pen rests in his steady hand. There comes a point when silence begins to test your faith. You look around and see movement everywhere. People achieving, growing, celebrating. while your own life seems paused, as if God placed you in a waiting room with no explanation. Yet in this stillness, He is teaching you the art of trust, not the shallow kind that depends on outcomes, but the deep kind that rests on His unchanging nature. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. You might not see it, but God is protecting you from noise that would have led you astray. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every moment of quiet has purpose. It's not rejection, it's redirection. When the world grows silent, God begins to reorder your priorities so that His voice becomes the loudest one again. What feels like delay is often divine preparation for something your heart isn't ready to carry yet. The quiet teaches you to listen differently, not with your ears, but with your spirit. You start noticing small signs, a verse that speaks directly to your situation, a gentle peace that replaces anxiety, a sunrise that reminds you that God renews His mercy each morning. Lamentations 3:22-23. These are not coincidences. They are reminders that He is with you in the unseen, weaving purpose through your pauses. Sometimes trust doesn't sound like confidence. It sounds like a whisper that says, "I don't understand, but I believe you're still good." That's the faith that pleases God. Not loud declarations, but quiet endurance. You may not know what tomorrow looks like, but you know who holds it. When your heart learns to find security not in clarity but in Christ, that's when true peace begins to take root. It's okay if your prayers feel like sighs. God understands even the words you can't form. In the silence, He's teaching you patience. In the waiting, He's strengthening your hope. And in your surrender, He's rebuilding your confidence. You are learning that faith is not proven in the noise of victory, but in the quiet of perseverance. Remember Isaiah 26:3. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. That's what He's doing for you right now. The stillness is His classroom, and trust is the lesson. Every quiet morning spent in His presence adds another layer of peace to your soul. So when you feel forgotten, remember, silence is not God's absence. It's His artistry. He's shaping you gently, building in you a faith that no storm can destroy. When you stop fighting for control and allow yourself to rest in God's stillness, something beautiful begins to happen. Your spirit starts to breathe again. The same quiet that once felt heavy now feels holy. You start realizing that silence isn't the absence of progress, but the birthplace of strength. The Lord never intended for you to carry everything alone. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. In this gentle pause, He pours peace into every weary corner of your soul. The world celebrates noise, constant talking, planning, achieving, but heaven celebrates surrender. When you slow down, you align yourself with divine rhythm. You begin to see that every delay, every unanswered prayer, every quiet morning is part of a conversation God is having with your heart. He is showing you that stillness is not weakness. It is strength wrapped in trust. Think of the sea. When the waves are calm, you can see deep beneath the surface. That's what God is doing inside you. He's calming the storms so you can see what has been hidden, the hope you forgot, the dreams He placed in your spirit, the faith that never truly left. The silence clears the fog of anxiety, allowing His truth to shine again. In Psalm 62:1, David wrote, "Truly my soul finds rest in God. My salvation comes from Him." David understood something profound. Peace isn't found in getting what you want, but in trusting who holds your life. When you rest your heart in Him, even in uncertainty, you discover that the stillness is sacred ground. It's where your dependence on yourself ends and your dependence on God begins. There's power in choosing to wait without fear. Every time you refuse to let worry take control, your spirit grows stronger. God uses silence as a forge, not to punish, but to purify. He's teaching you endurance, patience, and deeper faith. The quiet moments you spend with Him now are preparing you for seasons where you'll need unshakable peace. Sometimes God keeps things still around you because He's trying to quiet the storm within you. The noise outside will always return. Responsibilities, voices, demands. But what He's building inside your spirit will remain. A peace that no storm can shatter. A strength that doesn't depend on circumstances. a calm that carries his presence wherever you go. This quiet time is not wasted. It is your foundation. You are learning that you don't have to understand everything to trust his hand. His silence is not his absence. It's his way of saying, I'm working in ways you can't yet see. And soon, when the time is right, you'll understand that the stillness was his greatest gift. There is a sacred transformation that happens when you stop running from the quiet and begin to dwell within it. What once felt like emptiness now feels like a sanctuary. You begin to see that the silence you feared was actually God's gentle way of calling you back to his heart. It is here, in this stillness, that your soul learns to breathe in rhythm with heaven. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Psalm 37:7. Every person walks through seasons where life slows down and heaven seems silent. But that stillness isn't punishment. It's an invitation. God brings you to quiet places not to isolate you, but to restore you. He removes the distractions so that you can hear his whisper again. The same voice that spoke light into darkness is now speaking peace into your spirit. And though the world cannot hear it, your soul does. In the quiet, God begins to heal what noise once buried. He mends the broken edges of your heart with threads of grace. The silence becomes a sanctuary, a holy space where you no longer strive to earn his love, but simply rest in it. Sometimes you think you're waiting for something to happen, but in reality, God is waiting for you to let go, to trust, to stay still long enough for him to do what only he can do. Remember Psalm 91:1. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. That shelter isn't a place you visit. It's a presence you carry. You don't need perfect circumstances to find peace. You need only to stay close to him. In that closeness, fear loses its power, anxiety loses its grip, and your heart remembers what it means to rest. There's something deeply powerful about learning to love the silence, not because it's easy, but because it's where you finally stop performing and start belonging. When you sit quietly before the Lord, you realize that you are already enough. You don't have to prove your faith. You just have to be with him. The stillness becomes sacred when you stop demanding answers and simply enjoy his company. It's in this place that strength quietly returns. Your worries begin to soften. Hope starts to grow again, not as a loud declaration, but as a gentle assurance that you are exactly where you need to be. Every quiet morning, every pause between your prayers, every deep breath is a reminder that you are not alone in the silence. God is here. This stillness will not last forever, but it will leave a mark that endures. When life becomes noisy again, you'll carry this peace with you. A calm heart, a steady faith, a soul that knows its home. The silence didn't come to break you. It came to build you. There is a sacred transformation that happens when you stop running from the quiet and begin to dwell within it. What once felt like emptiness now feels like a sanctuary. You begin to see that the silence you feared was actually God's gentle way of calling you back to his heart. It is here, in this stillness, that your soul learns to breathe in rhythm with heaven. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Psalm 37:7. Every person walks through seasons where life slows down and heaven seems silent. But that stillness isn't punishment. It's an invitation. God brings you to quiet places not to isolate you, but to restore you. He removes the distractions so that you can hear his whisper again. The same voice that spoke light into darkness is now speaking peace into your spirit. And though the world cannot hear it, your soul does. In the quiet, God begins to heal what noise once buried. He mends the broken edges of your heart with threads of grace. The silence becomes a sanctuary, a holy space where you no longer strive to earn his love, but simply rest in it. Sometimes you think you're waiting for something to happen, but in reality, God is waiting for you to let go, to trust, to stay still long enough for him to do what only he can do. Remember Psalm 91:1. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. That shelter isn't a place you visit. It's a presence you carry. You don't need perfect circumstances to find peace. You need only to stay close to him. In that closeness, fear loses its power, anxiety loses its grip, and your heart remembers what it means to rest. There's something deeply powerful about learning to love the silence, Not because it's easy, but because it's where you finally stop performing and start belonging. When you sit quietly before the Lord, you realize that you are already enough. You don't have to prove your faith. You just have to be with Him. The stillness becomes sacred when you stop demanding answers and simply enjoy His company. It's in this place that strength quietly returns. Your worries begin to soften. Hope starts to grow again, not as a loud declaration, but as a gentle assurance that you are exactly where you need to be. Every quiet morning, every pause between your prayers, every deep breath is a reminder that you are not alone in the silence. God is here. This stillness will not last forever, but it will leave a mark that endures. When life becomes noisy again, you'll carry this peace with you. A calm heart, a steady faith, a soul that knows its home. The silence didn't come to break you. It came to build you. You have reached the kind of quiet that once frightened you, but now it feels almost sacred. The hush that surrounds you is no longer heavy. It hums with divine presence. In this silence, your heart finally begins to realize that God has been speaking all along, just not in the ways you expected. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. 1 Kings 19:12. That whisper is the sound of heaven resting upon you. There are times when you ask, why isn't God answering? But what if He already has, just differently? Maybe His answer is in the peace that refuses to leave. Maybe it's in the strength that surprises you when you thought you were empty. Maybe it's in the sudden clarity that comes after surrender. God doesn't need to raise His voice to reach you. When your heart is quiet, even His whisper can move mountains inside you. You see, God often chooses the silent places because that's where trust grows. Noise can make you rely on signs. Silence teaches you to rely on faith. When everything around you slows, you begin to realize that faith isn't built by constant answers, but by constant awareness of His presence. It's in the stillness that you start hearing Him in new ways, not through thunder or drama, but through peace, through beauty, through the simple certainty that He is near. In Psalm 85:8, the psalmist writes, I will listen to what God the Lord says. He promises peace to His people, His faithful servants. Listening requires stillness, and stillness requires trust. That's why God sometimes draws you into seasons where His voice seems distant, not to discourage you, but to refine how you listen. He's teaching you to distinguish His whisper from the noise of the world, and when you learn to hear Him there, the silence no longer feels empty. It becomes a meeting place, a space where your fears dissolve and your faith deepens. This is where revelation happens, not in chaos, but in calm. You begin to see your circumstances differently. You realize that God was never inactive. He was simply teaching you to pay attention. So let this quiet space become your sanctuary again today. Close your eyes and breathe in His presence. The world may not understand the power of stillness, but you have tasted it. The peace that comes from resting in the shadow of the Almighty. You are learning that His whispers carry more power than the loudest storms. The same God who spoke galaxies into existence is speaking peace into your heart now. And when He speaks, even silence becomes a symphony of grace. When the world grows silent around you, it can feel strange at first, like stepping into a room where the echoes of your old worries still linger. But as you sit in that stillness, you begin to notice something miraculous. Beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath everything you thought you had to be, your true self starts to emerge. In the quiet, God reminds you of who you are. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. You've spent so long trying to meet expectations, to please, to prove, to perform. Yet God never asked you to carry that weight. He asks for your heart, not your perfection. When everything else fades into silence, His voice speaks identity over you again. You are loved. You are chosen. You are mine. It's not the roar of the crowd that defines you, but the whisper of the Creator who formed you in secret. This stillness is a sacred mirror. It shows you not what the world sees, but what heaven knows. God uses quiet to peel away the layers that life has added, the masks, the doubts, the scars, until all that remains is the beauty He placed in you from the beginning. In that silence, your heart begins to rest in truth. You were never forgotten. You were always being refined. In Isaiah 43:1, God declares, "Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." Those words carry healing for every soul that has forgotten its worth. Maybe this quiet season has stripped away things you thought you needed, relationships, plans, achievements. But God is showing you that identity built on Him can never be lost. He's not trying to take from you. He's trying to free you. The quiet can feel uncomfortable because it reveals. It reveals how often you've looked for validation in the wrong places. But instead of condemnation, God offers comfort. He whispers, "You don't need to prove your value to anyone. You are already enough in me." That's what this silence is about. Restoration, not rejection. And as this truth sinks in, peace begins to return. You start to breathe differently. You realize that you don't need to chase approval because grace has already found you. The quiet becomes a place of remembrance, where you stop trying to be who the world wants and start becoming who God created. There's a strength that rises when you remember your true name, not the one the world gave you, but the one heaven calls you by. Loved, redeemed, whole. That's who you are in the eyes of your Father. So if you find yourself surrounded by silence today, don't run from it. Stay there. Let it remind you of who you've always been and who you are still becoming in His hands. There is a moment in every believer's journey when the silence that once felt unsettling begins to produce something unexpected. Confidence. Not confidence in yourself or your circumstances, but in the one who holds your life steady even when everything around you seems uncertain. The quiet that once felt empty now feels full, because you've learned that silence doesn't mean absence. It means assurance. The Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. Proverbs 3:26. You've learned to stop demanding answers and start trusting timing. You've discovered that God doesn't need to rush. He's never late, and He never wastes a waiting season. Each quiet morning has trained your heart to rely less on outcomes and more on presence. What once felt like delay now feels like preparation. The peace you sense today didn't arrive by accident. It's the fruit of surrender. This peace doesn't shout, it stands. It holds you steady when doubts whisper. It reminds you that faith was never meant to be loud. It was meant to be firm. The world may measure strength by how much noise you make, but heaven measures it by how deeply you trust. Confidence born in stillness is the kind that cannot be shaken. In Psalm 16:8, David said, "I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With Him at my right hand, I will not be shaken." That is the quiet confidence God is building in you. You may not know what tomorrow holds, but you no longer fear it. You've walked through uncertainty and discovered that peace isn't found in clarity. It's found in Christ. The more you sit in His presence, the more your worries lose their grip. You begin to realize that silence is not the opposite of power. It's the birthplace of it. It's where God strengthens you without the world noticing. It's where your faith becomes mature, your patience deepens, and your heart learns to rest even in the unknown. Confidence in God doesn't mean life stops being hard. It means your spirit stops being shaken by what's hard. You can look at your situation and say, "Even if I don't see the outcome yet, I know who walks beside me." That kind of confidence doesn't come from noise. It comes from knowing. So when silence surrounds you again, don't panic. Instead, smile. You've been here before, and you know what happens in the quiet. God speaks, God restores, God prepares. Every pause is a promise in disguise. Every delay is direction being written. Every moment of waiting is God making sure your heart is ready for what's next. You're no longer afraid of the stillness. You've grown strong within it. And now, the quiet that once unsettled you has become the rhythm of your faith. Calm, steady, unbreakable. When life grows quiet, your eyes begin to open in ways that they never could when surrounded by noise. You start to notice how God has been weaving His goodness through moments you once overlooked. The stillness sharpens your vision, and what once seemed ordinary now feels divine. Open my eyes that I may see wonderful things in your law. Psalm 119:18. In the hush of His presence, you begin to see not just with your eyes, but with your spirit. You start realizing that God has been faithful in every detail, in the delays, in the disappointments, even in the detours. What once looked like wasted time now glows with quiet purpose. He was never trying to break your rhythm. He was changing it, slowing it down so that you could notice his fingerprints on everything. You see his mercy in the morning light, his kindness in a friend's words, his grace in the strength you didn't know you had. Sometimes you wonder why he doesn't show you everything at once. But that's because vision built in silence grows roots that last. When you couldn't see the way forward, he was teaching you to walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. The silence became his classroom, and faith became your sight. You began to trust not what you could predict, but what he had already promised. There's a beauty in the quiet that words cannot capture. The kind of peace that comes when you realize that everything you need is already unfolding in God's time. When the world feels loud and rushed, the quiet becomes your refuge, your reminder that you don't have to understand every detail to be at peace. You just need to look up and remember that his hand is still guiding every step. Isaiah 42:16 says, "I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Along unfamiliar paths I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light before them." That is what God is doing in your stillness. He's guiding you through unseen paths, giving you eyes that perceive hope, even in uncertainty. The longer you dwell in his presence, the clearer you see that silence is not an obstacle. It's a lens through which you discover his glory. So today, let your eyes rest. Look not at what's missing, but at what's already here: grace, mercy, and quiet strength. Every breath is proof that his spirit lives within you. Every calm moment is a reminder that your story is still being written by hands far wiser than your own. In the quiet, you've learned that sight isn't about seeing everything clearly. It's about seeing God clearly in everything. You no longer need constant signs to believe. You've found enough in his presence to trust the unseen. Have you noticed God revealing something new to you during a quiet moment lately? Write about it below. Your insight could help someone else see God's hand in their silence. You've walked through long days of uncertainty, and you've learned that silence doesn't always mean stillness. Sometimes it's a sacred rhythm that teaches your heart to worship differently. There's something holy that happens when your waiting becomes less about what you want and more about who you trust. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. Psalm 41. The waiting that once felt like a burden now becomes a melody. Soft, steady, faithful. You've discovered that worship is not confined to songs or moments of joy. True worship blooms in the quiet, when you keep believing even without visible change. It's when your heart whispers, "You are still good," even as you wait for the breakthrough. Each breath becomes a prayer. Each tear becomes incense before his throne. Heaven hears what your words can't express, and in that hidden place, your worship becomes powerful. Waiting used to make you anxious. You wanted to move, to fix, to understand. But now, the silence feels different. It feels purposeful. You've come to realize that waiting is not wasted time. It's divine alignment. God uses pauses not to delay you, but to prepare you. Every quiet season has been teaching you endurance, shaping your spirit for the blessings he's preparing to release. In Habakkuk 2:3 it says, "Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." That verse carries the heartbeat of this season. The silence isn't the end, it's the interval before fulfillment. What God promised will come, not when you demand it, but when it can strengthen you, not strain you. That's what worship and waiting does. It teaches you to trust his wisdom more than your timeline. There's peace that comes when your faith matures from asking when to declaring, "Whenever you will, Lord." That's the kind of trust that turns waiting into worship. Your heart no longer fights the stillness. It flows with it. The longer you rest in his presence, the clearer it becomes. The wait is not proof of his absence, but evidence of his care. When you lift your eyes toward heaven and whisper thanks in the middle of uncertainty, that's worship. When you keep praying though nothing seems to shift, that's worship. When you refuse to give up on hope, that's worship. You may not realize it, but every time you choose peace over panic, you're singing a silent song of faith. So today, let your waiting be worship. Let it be the offering that rises from the quiet corners of your soul. Let it remind you that God's timing is never rushed, and his plans never fail. Even here, even now, he is working. and your stillness is the stage where His glory will soon appear. There comes a time when the stillness that once tested you begins to restore you. You no longer see silence as something to escape, but as a space where your soul breathes again. God didn't lead you into this quiet to punish you. He brought you here to renew you. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. Psalm 23:2-3. These words now describe your heart's rhythm. You're learning that rest is not a pause from life. It's part of how God sustains your life. In the world's noise, you carried so much. Fears, expectations, regrets, the pressure to always do more. But in this silence, God gently begins to peel those burdens away. You start to see how He never asked you to carry what was crushing you. The quiet reveals what matters most, and slowly, your heart begins to heal. Renewal doesn't come through rushing. It comes through resting in the One who never stops holding you. There's something powerful about how God rebuilds you in stillness. While the world sees waiting as weakness, heaven sees it as strength. Each quiet morning is an opportunity to let your spirit be refreshed by His peace. You begin to notice how His presence seeps into the smallest moments. The way light falls through your window, the calm that fills your chest after prayer, the gratitude that rises without effort. These are not coincidences. They are reminders that renewal is happening, even when you don't see it. Isaiah 40:31 declares, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." That's the kind of renewal taking place within you now. You are not the same person who entered this season of silence. The worry that once consumed you has lost its grip. The heaviness that once followed you has begun to lift. What felt like emptiness was actually God clearing space for new peace to enter. Renewal begins with surrender. It happens when you stop trying to control the outcome and start trusting the process. God often does His best work beneath the surface, in unseen spaces where your heart finally lets go. The stillness isn't passive, it's productive. While you wait, He's healing what was broken, strengthening what was weak, and filling what was empty. Now you can sense it. The gentle stirring of new life, quiet yet powerful. You're not the same. The silence that once drained you now fills you. The stillness that once frightened you now anchors you. This is what it means to be renewed, not through striving, but through surrender. So rest in this holy calm. Let it continue to shape you, refresh you, and prepare you for what's next. The quiet isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new chapter written in peace. You can feel it now. A shift deep within your spirit. The silence that once stretched endlessly ahead has softened into something sacred, something full of quiet expectation. It's as if heaven itself is holding its breath, preparing you for what's next. You've been walking through a season of stillness, but every step has been leading you toward a new beginning. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:19. God has been working beneath the surface, planting seeds that are just now beginning to bloom. The stillness has shaped you. It stripped away the noise that clouded your hearing, the distractions that pulled you from peace. You've learned that the silence was not an empty space. It was a sacred waiting room where transformation happened quietly. Every tear watered the soil of your faith. Every unanswered prayer became a root that grew deeper. And now, what once felt like a delay reveals itself as preparation. You are standing on the edge of something new, not because life suddenly became easy, but because your heart finally became ready. The old patterns no longer fit you. The same fears that once silenced your courage no longer have authority. You have learned to hear the whisper of God even in the calm. You've learned to trust His process even when it made no sense. And that trust has birthed new strength inside you. A strength that carries peace instead of pressure. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, Scripture reminds you, He has made everything beautiful in its time. Not rushed, not forced, but in its time. You see now that beauty often begins in silence. Growth often happens in the dark. Before a dawn ever breaks, there is always stillness. God was never withholding from you. He was teaching you to recognize His rhythm. You've come to understand that the quiet seasons are not the absence of God's movement. They are His most intimate work. In the stillness, He rebuilt your heart, restored your faith, and refined your purpose. He's not only preparing new blessings for you, He's preparing you for those blessings. Take a moment and breathe deeply. Let gratitude rise for every unseen miracle that took place in this silence, for the peace that replaced anxiety, for the calm that carried you through confusion, for the grace that filled what you lost. The quiet was never meant to break you. It was meant to build you. Now the dawn begins to glow faintly on the horizon. You can sense that God's timing is unfolding perfectly. There's no need to rush, no need to force what's coming. You simply need to walk in step with Him, letting the peace that guided you in the silence continue to lead you into what's next. The quiet was the preparation. Now comes the awakening. You are ready for the new beginning, not because everything around you changed, but because you did. The stillness has become strength. The silence has become wisdom. The waiting has become worship. And now, the peace that once held you will go with you. There's a strength that comes from stillness, not the kind that shouts or demands attention, but the quiet courage that grows when your heart has learned to trust in the unseen. You've spent time in silence, and now that silence has become sacred ground beneath your feet. It's no longer an empty space. It's the soil where bravery was born. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. You didn't realize it while you were waiting, but every moment of stillness was training you for this, for the strength to stand when things don't make sense, for the courage to step forward without needing to know every detail. The quiet seasons have taught you how to hear God's voice, and that voice now becomes your anchor in motion. You've learned to walk not by sight, but by faith, the kind of faith that remains steady even when the path ahead looks uncertain. There's something deeply beautiful about the courage that grows in silence. It's not loud, it doesn't rush, it simply is. It's a quiet confidence that says, even if I don't see the whole picture, I trust the artist. You no longer need everything to be clear before you move. You've learned that obedience is not about knowing the destination, but about trusting the direction. In Psalm 27:14, it says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord." Waiting and courage are not opposites. They are partners. The longer you waited in silence, the more your spirit learned endurance. Now that endurance has turned into strength. You can sense it. The stillness that once felt heavy now feels like peace wearing armor. You've walked through doubt and came out with faith. You've faced moments of loneliness and discovered that you were never truly alone. God's presence became your quiet companion, and that companionship has built unshakable courage. The kind that doesn't crumble when storms come, because it was forged in the calm. Courage doesn't mean you stop feeling afraid. It means your trust in God is stronger than your fear. It's the ability to say, I don't know what's next, but I know who goes with me. That's what the silence has taught you. Not to fear the unknown, but to walk boldly through it, hand in hand with the one who never leaves. So as you stand on the threshold of what's ahead, carry this stillness within you. Let it be your secret strength, your quiet fire. Let the peace that once held you now propel you forward. You don't need to raise your voice to walk in victory. Your calmness is proof of your confidence. This is what it means to live with courage shaped by silence, steady heart, clear spirit, and unwavering trust. You've learned that even in the quietest places, God's presence roars louder than fear. And that is enough. As you continue this journey, the quiet that once humbled you now walks beside you. It's no longer just a pause in your story. It has become the rhythm of your soul. You've learned that peace isn't found in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of God within the struggle. The silence that once felt heavy has turned into a companion, whispering reminders that no matter what happens, you are never walking alone. The Lord gives strength to His people. The Lord blesses His people with peace. Psalm 29:11. You've realized that the same quiet that restored your heart now guides your steps. When storms arise, you no longer rush to react. You breathe, you remember, and you let God lead. The world may still shout around you, But inside, there's a stillness that refuses to be shaken. You carry within you a sanctuary that no chaos can touch, a peace that surpasses understanding. Philippians 4:7. Peace doesn't mean life becomes easy. It means you've learned to trust the one who stands above the waves. You no longer fight to control every outcome. You've seen how surrender opens doors that striving never could. Each time you let go of anxiety, you make room for God to move. The silence taught you that real peace isn't something you chase. It's something you receive. In Isaiah 32:17, Scripture says, "The fruit of righteousness will be peace. Its effect will be quietness and confidence forever." That's what has taken root inside you. The fruit of your faith has become serenity. You've walked through uncertainty, through delay, through doubt, and out of it has grown a trust that cannot be disturbed. Now, when fear tries to creep in, you remember, I've been through silence before, and I've seen what God can do there. Your steps may still be small, but they are steady. You no longer need to rush into tomorrow, because peace has taught you patience. You no longer need to defend your worth, because peace has taught you you're already loved. This is the quiet confidence of someone who has been still long enough to know that God truly is enough. And so, you begin to walk differently, softer, calmer, freer. Your words carry grace instead of worry. Your thoughts rest instead of race. The same stillness that once tested you now lives inside you, guiding you with gentle assurance. Be still and know that I am God. That truth has become your heartbeat. Now, as you move forward, you carry this peace into every space you enter. You bring calm where there is chaos. You speak softly where others shout. You remind yourself and those around you that peace isn't found in perfect circumstances. It's found in a perfect Savior. This is the gift of the quiet. It didn't just change your surroundings, it changed you. And that peace, once learned, will never leave. The silence that once felt like a winter in your soul is now revealing its purpose. It was never meant to freeze you, only to form you. You've spent time in the hidden places, where no applause echoed, where no one saw the tears you shed in prayer. But God saw, and what He shaped in the quiet is now ready to shine. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 61. The stillness was a cocoon, not a cage. It protected you while God transformed you. In that sacred silence, He peeled away fear, pride, and doubt. Everything that kept your light dimmed. You didn't know it then, but every quiet morning of faithfulness was a rehearsal for your rising. Now, when you look back, you realize that the season of stillness was never about standing still. It was about being strengthened for what's ahead. God often does His greatest work in unseen places. While you thought you were waiting for something to happen, heaven was shaping your heart for the moment when He would call you forward. You've learned patience, humility, and discernment, qualities that shine brighter than any spotlight could. You now carry a peace that the world didn't give, and therefore cannot take away. That is your glow, the evidence of God's presence resting upon you. In 2 Corinthians 4:6 it says, "For God, who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' made His light shine in our hearts." You've walked through darkness, but not to be swallowed by it. To become a bearer of light for others still finding their way. The quiet taught you how to listen. Now it teaches you how to lead. Not by noise or pride, but by calm confidence and grace. The peace you found in the silence will become the power you carry into your purpose. You no longer move with panic, you move with patience. You no longer need to prove your worth, you reflect His. What once felt like delay now feels like divine timing, and you can finally see that every quiet moment was leading to this new beginning. You are stepping into a season where your spirit shines not because of achievement, but because of alignment. You've learned that true brightness comes from being connected to the source. You are not rushing ahead. You are walking in rhythm with heaven. Every step you take now carries the weight of wisdom. Every word you speak carries the softness of peace. So don't be afraid to shine differently. You don't need to be loud to be seen. The calm within you is what will draw others closer to God. You've become a reflection of His gentleness, the light that comes not from striving, but from surrender. Let your life be the quiet glow that reminds others, peace is possible, healing is real, and God is faithful even in silence. The silence that once felt like an in-between has now become the bridge to purpose. You can sense it, a quiet certainty rising within you. The long season of stillness wasn't wasted. It was divine preparation. God never lets your waiting go unused. Every slow morning, every unanswered prayer, every breath surrendered in trust was shaping you for this very moment. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Romans 8:28. You used to wonder why God seemed silent when you needed answers. But now you see that His silence wasn't absence. It was strategy. He was teaching you to listen deeper, to depend fully, to trust beyond sight. What He formed in the quiet cannot be shaken by noise. Your spirit has learned to move with purpose instead of panic. You walk slower, speak softer, love deeper, because you've met Him in the stillness, and He's changed how you live. Purpose doesn't always come as a grand revelation. Sometimes it comes as peace. It's the peace that says, I may not know what's ahead, but I know who leads me there. You now carry that peace wherever you go. It becomes your compass, guiding you when plans shift, comforting you when paths curve, grounding you when life feels uncertain. What was once confusion has turned into clarity. Your purpose is not just what you do, it's who you are becoming in Him. In Ephesians 2:10, Scripture says, For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Before the silence began, God already knew this chapter of your story. He planned it not to delay you, but to deepen you. The quiet places became your classroom. You learned patience, empathy, humility, all qualities that shape a purpose that lasts. Now you see that your calling isn't about being seen, but about seeing, noticing people the world overlooks, loving those who feel forgotten, bringing peace where others bring pressure. The stillness trained you for that. It taught you to recognize God's presence in small moments, in small acts, in the small kindnesses that carry eternal weight. Every silent prayer, every lonely night, every surrender became the foundation for this moment, the moment where you walk in quiet purpose. You're no longer striving to find meaning. You're living it, step by step, with peace as your companion. You've learned that you don't have to rush to fulfill God's plan. You simply have to walk with Him. And now, that same stillness that once felt heavy has turned into movement. Gentle, holy movement. You're no longer afraid of silence. You carry it within you. It's your reminder that purpose isn't born in noise, but in trust. And when you move from that place of peace, everything you do becomes an act of worship. So as you continue walking forward, remember, the quiet shaped your purpose so that your purpose could reflect His heart. That's the power of stillness. It doesn't just prepare you for life, it transforms how you live it. Now you've reached the place the journey was always leading you toward, a life not defined by noise, rush, or striving, but by deep and lasting peace. What began as a season of silence has become your foundation. The stillness that once unsettled you has settled inside you, shaping how you live, how you think, and how you love. You no longer see quiet moments as interruptions. You see them as invitations, holy pauses where heaven meets your heart. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. Isaiah 26:3. You've walked through uncertainty and learned that peace is not something you find after the storm. It's something God builds within you during it. The calm you now carry isn't fragile. It's anchored in His presence. When chaos rises, your heart no longer trembles, because you've discovered the secret. Peace is not the absence of trouble, but the presence of God. The silence taught you the rhythm of His grace. It showed you that life is not meant to be hurried, but holy. You now move at the pace of peace, not pressure. You listen more, you react less, and you find joy in the simple. A sunrise, a breath, a quiet prayer whispered before sleep. This is what the quiet was for all along, to slow your steps until they matched His. In Colossians 3:15 it says, Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace. You've learned to let that peace rule, to let it make your decisions softer, your words gentler, your faith stronger. The same God who met you in the silence now walks with you through every noise that life brings. You've been transformed, not by answers, but by presence. Now, when others see you, they see the reflection of someone who has been with God. There's a light in your calmness, a strength in your serenity. You no longer need to strive to prove His goodness. You live it. Every step, every breath, every prayer is evidence that peace is possible when trust becomes your posture. And maybe this was the lesson all along, that God doesn't want you to rush through life trying to fix everything. He wants you to rest through life trusting that He already has. You can face the unknown because you've seen His faithfulness in the unseen. You can walk through the noise because you've learned to carry the quiet. So let this peace stay with you, not as a fleeting feeling, but as a way of being. Let it guide your mornings and calm your nights. Let it speak louder than fear and stand stronger than worry. The world around you will still rush, but you've learned the divine secret. The quiet isn't something you leave behind. It's something you bring with you. The silence became your sanctuary, your teacher, your transformation. Now it becomes your song, a steady melody of grace that follows you wherever you go. You no longer fear the stillness. You are the stillness, a life that breathes peace because it knows the one who gives it. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you peace. Numbers 6:24-26. What part of this journey through the quiet spoke to you the most? Share below. Your words could bring peace to someone searching for it right now.